WesWes Show.
Manu Samoa got their first game. We've got a question here from our editor-in-chief, Cams. What do Manu Samoa need to do to get to get to the quarterfinal? And yeah, just following up on that, like who's going to cause that upset? So, Joey, mate, what are your thoughts on that? What does Manu Samoa need to do based on what you've seen in the opening week, in the opening game, and just who's going to cause that first upset? Do you think?
Well, firstly, they've got to obviously win as many games as they possibly can and make the top two. From I guess a technical standpoint, I think Manu Samoa have definitely got to follow the lead that Fiji have shown, which is play to their strengths. Fiji have obviously done that. They know where their strengths are across the board, and they haven't lost the flair. The Fijian flair that we love seeing from the Flying Fijians. I think Samoa needs to stick to their strengths on defense, those bone-crunching tackles. I think get the ball out to the backs as much as possible. I think the backs and just do as much as we can to recycle that ball. We're not known as a nation to have a very strong set piece compared to the bigger nations, but that's not saying that we couldn't do well there. I think Samoa have definitely got to utilize some of those star players that they've got there. I think it's just a matter of using the flair that Samoa are known for as well, because not only are we bone crunching tacklers as a nation, I think Samoa definitely need to play to their strengths in the flair and getting the ball out. And I think when that kind of play in the backs is cohesive and flowing well, some magical things can happen and some tries can happen. So putting themselves in the best possible position by playing to their strengths, I think, is key for this tournament for Manu Samoa. They have played some inspiring matches in previous World Cups, namely 2007 World Cup and even 2003. But I think Manu Samoa definitely need to play to their strengths.
Yeah, nice, mate. What about you, Roger? What are your thoughts on how Manu Samoa can get out of the pool? So just to recap for yourself and just for our listeners as well, Japan topped their pool, England in second, and then Samoa, who are yet to play. Argentina and Chile have got a loss each. So it's quite a difficult pool as it stands now. But mate, what are your thoughts on how Samoa can navigate that pool?
I think similarly to what Joey said with how Fiji have performed to date, especially in that loss to Wales, is their defence. Because you had guys, I reckon Wales will be sore after that game because some of the hits that they were putting in, and it wasn't just forwards, it was their backs, their winger was smashing Reece Salmon, he prevents a try. Reece Salmon should have had a try, but he ended up getting a try eventually. But some of the bone crunching hits, which were renowned with Samoa, Fiji were showing out that they're just as good. So if they can make their tackles stick and be patient on defense as well, and not try and infringe at the rucks, because you look at the count with that almost 250 tackles to 70 that Wales on Fiji, goes to show how much ball that Fiji had and how much position they would have had, but just couldn't quite execute. But it comes down to some of those calls as well. But discipline, ball retention, their set piece is really important. Again, traditionally, Samoa have struggled to find parity when it comes to scrummaging against some of the bigger home nations. So I'm hoping that they can secure ball, lay a good platform, and then let their backs do their thing. But hopefully we're not giving away we're seeing the All Blacks. Even the All Blacks will give away penalties, and teams like France will capitalise on those opportunities to secure some points. So that's it's going to be those small sort of facets of the game which will be crucial for Samoa to try and go deep into the competition. But the way we've seen Japan perform against Chile, they've done the right thing. You just got to secure as many points as you can. They got 5 points out of that game. England only got 4 against Argentina, but Argentina looked out of sorts because it's almost like it was they had backtracked from what we've seen Argentina, how we've seen them improve with their inclusion in Super Rugby with the Jaguares over the last few years, and then all their players playing professionally abroad. I think that's added to the improvement of Argentinian rugby. However, that game against England, it almost took me back to the 90s, early 2000s, when their backs seemed like they couldn't make inroads. They didn't have big enough backs to go up against an opposing defense line, because it just seemed like they were a bit of a lost cause. They couldn't get it wide enough to capitalise out wide either. But and their forwards did okay, but just I think they were struggling to find some parity up front against the English, and I think they just starved them as well, since they got their red card early in the to Johnny, forget the name, Hill, I think it was. He got red carded, so then what do England do? They just bank points, and it was just forward at number 10 securing penalty after penalty and a couple of drop kicks to throw in there as well. So we know it's part of the arsenal going back to Johnny Wilkinson days, but so they just secured the win. I think it was the majority or forwards points by the time he had come off. So Samoa will obviously play to their strengths and use and have their flavour, but to quote the impressive Alessandro Tuilangi, in saying that, he's told his brother, he's told Manu, we are coming there to kill you.
Nice.
So, yeah, hopefully Samoa will go well.
Yeah. Hey, just something I just thought of now. Joey, mate, I'll get your thoughts on this one. But how do you think Samoa should play this? They got Chile on the 17th of September. So I thought that they would probably just run out the B team. But after that, they've got a pretty crucial match against Argentina on the 23rd of September. So they just for a bit of clarity, they haven't. The last test they played was on the 26th of August. Again, that was the test against Ireland. So if you run the B team out against Chile, that means the A team against Argentina, they wouldn't have played for about 5 weeks. That could be about 4 to 5 weeks, 4 weeks. So that could be a bit of a tough one. So would you build on the A team combinations against Chile, or would you run the Bs out? So what's your sort of strategy on that side? You got any thoughts on that?
I just heard you say a certain word in a certain way.
Sorry, I was hoping I could have skipped past it and no one picked that up. Gabs, edit that out. Edit that out, please.
Roger, did you hear that one?
Roger, you put me off of your first accent, so I carried it on.
Oh,
I must have missed it. I was just focusing on the
Joey, mate. I was trying to brush past it really fast.
What could happen in this pool?
I was shocked to hear it. Anyway, yes, I think they just need to be tough.
Be tough.
I think the way they need to approach this in terms of, and it doesn't matter whether they put their B team first versus their A team, whatever. I think Samoa it doesn't matter who they put on. I think they just need to focus on a few key areas. One, win the set pieces, because if you're going to get dicked around in the set pieces, then there's no point relying on the strengths, which are, the physical side out wide. Because that's where our strengths are at the moment. It's using our size and power to dominate, the opposition. But we've got to start that in the scrum. We've got to do that in the rucks. We've got to win our ball. We've got to retain our ball. We've got to build pressure, and then the strengths out wide, which is using our power and size to get some tries. So putting our opponents under pressure as well is another key thing they need to focus on. I think Samoa should be aggressive at the breakdown, especially. They need to look at winning those turnovers. They've got to force the opposition. They've got to force Chile to make mistakes and, playing at a high tempo. Samoa have got to use their speed. They've got to use their athleticism. Samoa's got some very talented players, and on any given day, Samoa can play well against anybody. So that's South Africa, England, All Blacks included. It's been a while since I played against All Blacks. Thank you, New Zealand Rugby, for allowing Samoa the opportunity to play against the All Blacks regularly every 10 years. But, it's like, Samoa right now is a young team with a lot of potential. And, they if they can play to their strengths, they have a chance to beat both Chile and upset Argentina. I say beat Chile and upset Argentina because Chile is an unknown, right? And we kind of look at it as a game that Samoa should win, but we should never be complacent in that respect. They've kept USA out of this tournament, so they deserve the respect. At the same time, Argentina, they deserve respect as well, even though they probably didn't play to their best potential against England. So, Samoa focus on defense, as Stacey would say.
Yeah,
Both Chile and Argentina have attacking players, great attacking players, especially Argentina, because they're known to be good on attack as well. They've got flair as well. For a South American team, they've got some awesome flair. And they tend to be well organized defensively, so they're definitely going to need to be on the A game. Samoa should also be a bit patient when it comes to scoring points easily. They need to have a game plan that allows for them to build momentum throughout the game and be patient and be confident that they have the ability and skills to win the game in the end, because it is an 80-minute game, unless you're playing, of course, in Samoa, where it's a 120-minute game. And Samoa, just more than anything, they need to believe in themselves, like they did in previous World Cups, where they believed in themselves, they created upsets, they almost created even bigger upsets. They came so close to beating England one time, and they're a good team with a lot of potential, and they need to use this World Cup to do their best, to believe that they can win these games, these two games especially, because they really need to focus on these two games, Chile and Argentina, and use this tournament, whatever result, whatever outcome they get, whether they win the whole bloody thing or don't. They need to use this World Cup as a stepping stone to a more strategic World Cup at the next one, 2027. Because I think 2027 is where Samoa will, if they, build from now, can definitely make some waves and expect to see better results at the next World Cup. But as for this World Cup and focusing on here and now, they need to believe in themselves and believe that they can take scalps and believe that they can win these two particular games. Yeah.
Yeah, nice there, brother. That new eligibility rules is potentially giving Samoa a really leg up in terms of, like you say, I think the next World Cup might be the one. I'd start sending my scouts to Richie Mo'unga and start tapping him on the shoulder, saying, "Hey, look, I know you're done with New Zealand. Now come to us next time." So, wait, Raj, I'm just getting interested in your thoughts on how they should play this game against Chile. So they haven't played since the 26th of August. So, if you do give the B team a run against Chile just to give everyone in the squad a game, or do you prepare the A team knowing that you've got an important match, a tough or difficult, that's the two words I got mixed up there, game against Argentina the following week, and try to build those combinations?
Tough.
build those combinations or run the bees
See,
out.
Japan ended up winning the game against Chile quite comfortably in the end, but it was a bit of a scare at the beginning because Chile scored first. So that's the little you don't want to disrespect the team by thinking that they're going to be easy beats and then put on a B or C team. I think Samoa, they need to, because you look at Ireland, when Ireland played Romania, they put on it was a pretty gun team that Ireland had. You had Sexton playing, Bundy Aki. You had some of their gun players playing O'Mahony. I guess some of them would be bench players. Bundy Aki is potentially a starter, but there have been some games in the last couple of years where he has been used off the bench. He's in his early 30s now. O'Mahony as well is a stalwart for the Irish. But I think you've got some stalwarts in, not necessarily for Samoa, but they've got guys who have played in the New Zealand system for a long time before becoming eligible for Samoa, like there's Stephen Luatua, Charles Famuina. You got Jordan Taufua, Fritzley, who was playing overseas as well, but they were obviously locked into the old eligibility rule where they have already played for New Zealand, be it Sevens or All Blacks. So now that we've got them, and then we've got the likes of Christian Lalifano and also Lima Sopuanga, who's become available. So these guys are going to add to and they're not necessarily young. They've probably passed their peak playing powers, but their experience will be a good contribution to the youth of the team, like Joey and Stacey mentioned, because you've got guys. I can't even get to the team list. Where is it? You got some young guys, and I think our set piece should be good because we've got guys who ply their trade in Super Rugby or even abroad. You got Mike Alalatoa, who's played almost 100 games for the Crusaders. You've got the Lay brothers who play for the Blues. You've also got Charles Famuina, who I mentioned, who's played a number of tests for the All Blacks. And then Stephen Luatua, who's plying his trade for the Bristol Bears, and Chris Vui. So these guys have been around as well. Chris Vui, and then I like Talini Seal in one of the recent tests as well, where he's I think it was against England. I can't remember what team they played, but he had some good runs there. And Talini Seal just showing he's playing currently for New South Wales in Super Rugby. So if they can, utilize the talent that they've got in amongst some of the young guys, but some of these guys are all playing professionally, whether it be in Super or abroad. So, and it's probably, I don't know, close to probably our strongest World Cup team that we've ever had. We've had some good teams in the past, but this could be close to our strongest because you go right across. There's not many, if any, that are just guys that have been plucked out of club rugby.
That's true.
You got even D'Angelo Leuila. In the past he was just a club player for Papatoetoe, but now with the addition of Moana Pasifika, he's got Super Rugby behind him too. And then you got Miracle Failangi, who's come into the play through the system, the pathway from Samoa into Moana Pasifika, and we'll see what he can do at Super Rugby. So, and then I'm excited about Ed Fido. Ed Fido's, from being a club player, he forged his way into the sevens setup for Manu, but he's probably in his late 20s now, if not 30 already. He's 30, and he's played 19 games for Samoa, but he's playing in the MLR at the moment, so he's sort of and he's by way of Australian club rugby as well. So he's been a bit of a journeyman in trying to get contract after contract. But I think, and he may have played in Europe too. But MLR he's earning good coin over there too. So right across the board, we've got all our players are professional players, and so that's encouraging to see. And I'd like to see, when you talk about out and out pace, Ed Fido has that. whether he was playing for Patoito, but then he come across to plug in for Waitemata Rugby Club as well, where we had a couple of good wins against Ponsonby back in 2016, I believe it was, when Eddie was with us. So encouraging to see Eddie still plying his trade and still being included with the Manu, and hopefully, this is going to be a good World Cup for him. But the likes of, some of the names I've already mentioned, Mike Alatoa, we're not going to be easy beats, but games against Chile and especially Argentina is probably a good chance for them to try and topple Argentina. And then Japan, even though they had a good win against Chile, I think if we can just, really get a foothold on those two teams, and then what happens with England happens, But I think we've got a good making of trying to get to the quarterfinals at least, and then hopefully beyond. Just because of the strength of our squad, and it's not just the inclusion of former New Zealand players or Australian players, but I think it's just a good range right across, because we've seen what Danny Tuala can bring, and even Inari as well at halfback, and then Jonathan Tomatini as well. So they got and then hey, how can you go past Ben Lamb? I forgot to mention Ben Lamb as well. So we've got some pretty good players that we can sort of hopefully get a good result that we've been waiting for. The last time we made quarterfinals, 95. So here's probably our best chance.
Yeah. Hopefully they can, if they can get that win against Argentina or even Japan, because I think England, by that stage, they should have already qualified for that by the time they get to that last game. So I wonder if they might start resting
for that second place.
Yeah, they might rest players on that last game against Samoa, which might give us more of a chance. But we'd still have to win at least one of those games against England, Argentina, and Japan. So it's looking promising.
Then
I'm
seeing
50-50.
what England don't want to underestimate Samoa with the player base that they have. They're seeing what happened against Fiji when they played them last week. So yeah, they will probably don't want to lose that game, even if they do send out their second string team.
Well, if they've qualified, they want to get through to the pool stages without too many injuries to their first team. So I wouldn't be surprised if they play the Bees in that last pool stage, if they've already qualified. So that game against Argentina was quite crucial to get that win from their
because if you look at
and then from ours as well.
Because if you look at those other teams, like they probably played close to their best team against Argentina, because they probably saw them as the biggest threat.
Right.
I mean, I think Samoa will be a threat to them. But then Japan have surprised in the last couple of World Cups, so they're not going to be taken lightly either. But I think the experimental game will be the Chile game for all of the teams. But you saw Michael Leach still play for Japan on the weekend, so yeah, they just got to be careful that you don't want to underestimate any team. Chile have, although they were celebrating. They had a couple of guys score a try. They had a 41-year-old as well come off the bench for Chile, and that's exciting. They either just to say that they've been to a Rugby World Cup, let alone a try score at the World Cup, and the commentators make an important note of that, because this is something that these will live forever. These guys live forever, and knowing that they've attended a World Cup, they've scored a try at a World Cup. So it's celebrations all around, but we know that come the deeper end of the competition, the business end, that a lot of these teams, Chile probably won't go past pool play.
Nice. It's going to be quite interesting. This is quite actually an interesting pool, because England came into the World Cup in quite poor form, even though they put on a really good performance against Argentina. Argentina, they beat Australia in the it's not the Tri Nations anymore, the Rugby Championship. Samoa have had a couple of good results. They pushed Ireland all the way. So there's and Japan, we know what they're capable of as well. So these four teams, no disrespect to Chile, but there's four teams in that pool who'll be going there thinking that they can get out of that pool. And that's where it gets quite interesting. So it's going to be exciting games coming up. Right, boys. So now for a correction from our podcast, our last podcast from last week, was pointed out by one of our eagle-eyed, maybe eagle-eared listeners. I actually made an error in our preview show that we did that last time. So after the quarterfinals, the teams cross over and play each other in the semis. Now, that could have massive ramifications for our predictions. So apologies for that. I thought that they were going to, the C and D and A and B would stay on the same side right through to the final. But there is a crossover at the semi-final stage. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to alter your guys' predictions of who you thought would get through to the finals. It's definitely, or maybe not definitely, but it has actually altered my prediction. So I thought the Wallabies had an easy run through to the final, but it turns out they've got an easy-ish run through to the semi-finals, and then they'll play either the All Blacks or South Africa or France or Ireland or whoever comes through on that tough side of the draw. That's where it gets quite interesting. So I'm not sure if anyone's looking to revise their finalist picks on the back of that new information, or anyone caught your eye that you think, this team will be hard to beat, after these early games. But I'll give you guys a recap of what you guys said was going to happen, and you guys can decide if you want to make some changes. So, Joy, you picked basically a Bledisloe Cup showdown with Australia
is that possible
and New
now?
Zealand. It's possible, but All Blacks will have to beat someone tough in the semis. They will have to beat Ireland or France or something like that in the semis, as opposed to potentially playing Fiji.
So they could
or
potentially
like
meet France again for a second time in this tournament.
Yeah. So it's possible. So I'm not sure if you want to make some changes there. Rog, you went for New Zealand to play either England or Samoa, which I don't know, that Samoa's looking a bit rough for now. If they're going to have to play
in the semi,
they're going to have to play someone, one of those top teams in the semis. And I picked Ireland and Australia, so I'll give you guys
too
a
much
chance
to try and calculate.
Yeah,
it's too much to try and calculate this time.
Around that change. But yeah, I'm sort of looking to make a change with that new info. So the easy run that I picked Australia to get through will end in the semis, I think. So I'm still sticking with Ireland. I think they're going to win it, but I think that they will probably beat. I'm going to pick France. France with this new information, I think they're going to beat whoever they play in that semi-final on the other side. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Not sure if you guys are you guys happy to stick with your guys' early predictions. Joey, mate, are you happy with who you thought at the start? Or are you potentially making some changes? You might need some time to think about it because it's a lot of ramifications there.
Probably. No, you go, Joey.
I think for now I'll stick with my prediction of Australia to win the whole thing.
Yeah. I'll give you another week
but
to
I'm
think
not
about it,
so
I just
sure.
sprung it on you. I just sprung it on you guys. But
I'm
that
just
was my
not
error.
so sure about who their partner will be in the final. That's all. I'm not so sure that New Zealand will meet them in the final.
Oh, okay.
I am sure that Australia will be in the final.
Are you sure?
Well, I also don't think New Zealand's going to make. I thought they're going to get eliminated in the quarters, and I'm sticking with that. They're either going to play Ireland or South Africa at this stage, and I think both of those teams will beat the All Blacks, whoever they play. So, Roger, mate, are you looking at a potential change, or are you a bit too much calculation?
For mine,
at this point?
France will be in the final. Still France in the. Did I say France in the final last?
You said New Zealand to play England or Samoa, and that's because England and Samoa we thought was going to be on the easy side of the draw.
Right. Okay, that was based on that. Okay, so hard one to sort of try and conjure up at the moment. But I'm thinking, come next podcast, I'll have my calculations made up.
All right, I'll give you guys a bit of time.
Of that,
and
I think France will be in the back end. We'll be there somewhere. Sentimentally, I want New Zealand to be in the final. But it's going to take a lot to come back from that result.
First things first, just beat Italy first. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. New Zealand?
They've got it.
Yeah. Right, boys, we'll just have a quick look. Looking forward to the games coming up in the week. So we've talked about this briefly, but Samoa, they got their first game against Chile. Ireland playing Tonga. So I think Tonga's first match, Australia and Fiji, and England against Japan. That's just some of the highlights, mate. So Joey, mate, I'll give you a word. Anything sort of you're looking forward to in there, just for this week's games?
Oh man, I'm looking forward to seeing Ikaletahi do well because I really want them to. I'm not sure they will, but I really want them to have a good World Cup. I'm looking forward to that England-Japan game. I think right now it's not hard to believe that Japan has a shot in an upset there. Ireland, Ikaletahi. Yeah, obviously, Ireland are probably going to be too strong at this point, being that they've, the core of their squad have been together much longer than some of the players that Ikaletahi have brought together. But who knows? Ikaletahi could take this scalp during this World Cup. Who knows? They are big enough, strong enough, and scary enough to scare the Irish, which includes our mate Bandiaki. But yeah, I think I'm going to keep a close eye on Ireland because I too think they will be there or thereabouts in terms of the knockout stages. Let's see if they can go one better than their previous World Cups, where they haven't done better than quarterfinals, right? So yeah, if they make semifinals, is that considered a success for them? I'm not sure because they have been ranked number one previously in the world. So, and they've beaten the All Blacks a few times now. So, it's kind of expected that they will see themselves as a top four finisher. So, the question beckons, is that seen as a success if they only make semi-finals or only make quarterfinals? Who knows? So, I think it'll be interesting for sure. I'm definitely going to do better in terms of making sure I've got all the each game kickoff times and things all in mind because I don't want to miss out on games. It seems like a pretty exciting World Cup with the level of competition, like you mentioned earlier, Stace.
Yep, absolutely. Mate, Roger, what are you looking forward to for this week's upcoming games?
I think the match of the round will be Fiji, Australia. It's going to be interesting to see how Fiji return fire after the loss to Wales this morning. And it'll be interesting to see if Australia can get two on the trot at the World Cup. They've had an encouraging start against Georgia. Was it Georgia? I can't remember now.
Yeah, Australia beat Georgia so far.
Yeah, so and that would really boost their confidence, especially at the World Cup. And Eddie Jones playing the media and the mind games as he does. So that's the game of the round for me. It'll be awesome to see Samoa hit their straps against Chile, and who make that outing. Then also a game of interest will be New Zealand, Namibia. They should coast to a comfortable win, but it's the combinations that they want to try and settle, the experience that they want to give to some of the players that they might use later on, deeper into the round. It could potentially be a game where records are set. If they have Caleb Clark play, or even Mark Telea, 6 tries is the record, isn't it, in a game?
Mark Ellis.
But any of these games, like France against Uruguay, they could potentially get a record number of tries for one player. I think records of Jonah Habana scoring 8 or 9 tries in one tournament.
Yeah, 8
could be up for grabs here. Yeah, 8's the record. So, yeah, and Jonah did 7. So Jonah's got 15 in 2 World Cups. Habana's got 15 in, I think, 3. So it'll be interesting to see if those records get are surpassed. But those are the game of the round. It'll be interesting to see how Australia go, who they put up against Fiji, knowing that what the scare that Wales had this morning, and they'll be confident. Yeah, I think it'll probably change the shape of things for Australia if they can get a win over Fiji, but I'm sure Fiji won't make it an easy run. They'll fight tooth and nail to get a result over Australia. I think if any time for them to beat Australia, now's the time.
Yeah, that's good thoughts there. I think I think France qualified for the next round by losing 2 pool games, but it hardly ever happens, eh? So Fiji already at that stage of being, you know what, we got to almost try to win the rest of our games. So their backs to the wall already, and that desperation makes them really dangerous, that game against Australia. So I'm with you. I think that's going to be match of the round. That New Zealand Namibia game is going to be interesting. I'm not sure what they will get out of it. Like if they just pummel them by 60 whatever, you know, what does that actually mean? What does that prove? The issues they've got against France in the opening pool game, which were the same issues they had against South Africa the week before. I don't know if they can fix it. I don't know if Namibia is good enough that you can test out the strength of your set piece and all those issues which we talked about earlier on the podcast. So it's going to be interesting.
That's
from
the
that
thing,
side.
because as much as there's been improvement in probably the tier 1 nations, you still see the disparity at a match like Ireland versus Romania. Romania's been in every World Cup, and yet it's 82-8, and that was probably Ireland's second string team at best. So there's still a bit of a divide there. But yeah, and that's the thing. Some of these games against the Portugals, the Uruguays, the Chiles, for the tier 1 nations, there could be some blowouts. But, you know, what good does it get out of that? New Zealand saw an 07, like I mentioned earlier on. They had an easy pool, but then were ousted in quarterfinals. So it's something that they have to factor in, and I'm sure every single tier 1 nation, or, you know, teams that can potentially reach the semi-final stage at least, they'll be trying to calculate what's the, you know, horses for courses for each game, and who do they want to give game time, just in case, in preparation for injuries and what have you. So it'll be interesting.
Yep, 100% agree there, boys. Right, we're just about to wrap up. So that was quite a comprehensive podcast there. So we'll just go around and get some final thoughts there, mate. Joey, mate, I'll give you the first word. Any final thoughts in closing our pod for the week?
Yeah, I think you know, it's an exciting World Cup in that it's quite a competitive one. It's much harder now to pick a winner. I think in previous World Cups it was quite easy. You know, you only had to look at the top 4, the traditional top 4 teams, to pick out a winner, and the previous winners were, you know, South Africa. They're the defending champions. And even at this World Cup, it's hard to even pick South Africa to retain their title, because even though they're strong, it's hard to pick them as the, you know, the favourites of the tournament. So, you know, and France are looking very good. So are Ireland. So are, you know, a couple of others. But I think for me, the interesting games to watch are going to be the games between tier 2 nations and tier 1 nations, where, you know, the Samoas, the Galetahis and the Flying Fijians, they will more than likely take a scalp at some point during the tournament. I'm looking closely at Fiji because they've shown consistency in terms of results and performances. However, I do want Samoa and Tonga to also be there or thereabouts with the likes of the Flying Fijians and perform. So obviously they don't go out there to lose, but at the same time, you know, it's going to be a tough tournament to consistently win and get the results that they're after. I'm sure a lot of these teams are even seeing making top 2 or making it to the quarterfinals as a success. If they look further than that, good. You know, should aim for, you know, at least making it to the final or something like that, or at least winning it. and possibly landing at a semi-final, spot or a quarterfinal spot. But I think some of these top teams, some of these tier one nations, have been put on notice, as we saw with the the warm-up match between Fiji and England, where England got absolutely dicked in front of their home crowd at Twickers, the international home of rugby. So I'm sure England have a point to prove there, and I'm sure Fiji still have some of that confidence from that particular game, even though they lost today to Wales, and will take it in the tournament and try and win or be top two in their pool. But yeah, it's an exciting World Cup, and I'm really excited about keeping up with it. I haven't been this way about a World Cup in a long time. The previous World Cup, I wasn't like this. I wasn't as excited as I am about this one. But yeah, it's interesting to see, and I really want to see some results from the nations that I follow. Anyway, go to Manu.
Absolutely, and it'll be disastrous if the All Blacks falter early and Manu don't do that good, just because those are the two teams that we both support. So hopefully they do well, even though as the World Cup this will be very, very competitive. Rog, mate, just coming to you, any final thoughts from you in closing, brother?
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to how Samoa sort of go into this tournament. And the last time, I think there was only one time in their World Cup history where they haven't scored in a game, and that was against Scotland in 2019. So, but then that came into play because there was a discipline as well. So Ed, who we mentioned earlier on, Ed Fido, he was dismissed for 2 yellow cards in that game. So that was to only add a little bit of salt to the wound. But, we've had a lot of history, and we've had some good players come through for Samoa, and the iconic tries like To'ovainga's try against Wales in 91. Just moments like that, and I think World Cups you sort of look forward to more iconic moments and to be had, and so I'm hoping that we can go beyond being quarterfinalists from 91 95 or repeat that at least. We've played 36 matches, we've won 14. Tonga's played 29, they've won only 8. So for small Pacific Island nations, they're fighting against some of the big guns of international rugby. But when you look at both teams, this is probably the strongest teams that they've had in a long time, and Fiji factor into that as well, simply because mentioned in the last pod that they've probably got the majority of them are in the draw system, so Super Rugby players as well as players playing professionally abroad. So the probably in terms of player base, have got the riches, the best set available, and the majority of them are all playing professionally. So that puts them in good stead, and we've seen what potentially could happen with Fiji against Wales, and the week before toppling England. So they're all dangerous, and I think everyone's been put on notice, so they're not going to be taken lightly, but it'll be awesome to see who out of the Pacific Island nations, because I think at the end of the day, if we don't all make it through, if our favourite teams don't make it through, we'll be supporting the Pacific teams as well as our beloved All Blacks as best as we can, as deep as they go into the tournament. Hopefully they go into the latter stages, but yeah. All that being said, Jack Morgan, captain for Wales this morning, he's a player to watch. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter.
Oh, okay. Is he the new Alan Wynne Jones or something?
Well, he had a couple of cross kicks here, reminiscent of Ali Williams' cross kick, and he did it one too many times though. But he did it a couple of times. It pulled off, even a box kick, and even the commentators were surprised. Jack Morgan, but he was the skipper this morning, and yeah, I haven't really sort of taken notice of him until this morning. So he might be a player to watch. Will he be like a Sam Warburton, as iconic as he was in the 2011 World Cup? Yeah. He meant a lot to that team, but when he got red carded in that game against France again, adding to France being able to, despite 2 losses in pool play, All Blacks and Tonga, they still made it and then came close against Wales. The red card aided their their success, and then history, as we know it, 8-7 against the All Blacks. So they came close.
Yeah, and that's a really good point to remember. Like, I mean, sometimes you just have to be good at the right time. South Africa last 2019 was very similar. Like they lost to the All Blacks in pool stages. They got a favourable quarterfinal against Japan, I'll say, even though Japan beat them that other time. But stylistically, that was a bad matchup for them. They just ran through the top of them. They had small, fast guys, the Japanese team. And they managed to get all the way to the final without sort of testing themselves really, and they were able to play their best game in the final. And you should talk about that one there, France 2011. So I was at that semi-final. Me and Tana, we went to that game, France against Wales at Eden Park. And once that red card to Warburton, that was it. It was over.
It just changed the game.
Yeah, Wales would have won that game if it wasn't for that, I think, and that would have been in their first final. So after that red card, me and Tana just we just hit the beers pretty hard after that. the game was a spectacle. It was over. And you're right, Warburton in that World Cup, he was a beast. So it was a massive loss. So anyone can win it, and there's so many factors that are beyond control that can happen, that can change the whole outcome of a game. Because France, you're right, they had no business being there, and they nearly won that World Cup final. They almost pulled it off.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the great game of rugby and this World Cup. I think there's going to be some twists and turns. You can almost bet it. I just hope that it's not All Blacks on the wrong side.
And because of their track record, and yet advancing in that tournament, they were written off right from the beginning. They'd lost to Tonga, they'd lost to the All Blacks,
That's
and
right.
so like you say, they shouldn't have made it that far, but they did, and they were written off that they were going to get a hiding 50-0. I had people on the way to the game saying that the All Blacks are going to win easy 100 points, by 100 points. But then there was only 1 point. Tony Woodcock try, a prop, scoring the only try. And then a Dusautoir coming close to winning it for his own team, for France that day. But, the rest is history.
Say a bit about Stephen Donald. You say it every podcast. So go on, might as well edit that in. Whatever was Stephen Donald.
And then Beaver, who was white baiting, gets called in. So, and then that penalty. Yeah. So Chiefs player, Blues player, did the damage that day. But
nice.
He goes down in not only All Blacks history as a legend, but Rugby World Cup folklore.
Yeah.
Winning it with the kick.
How many people get a movie made about
There they go.
Stephen Donald, Francois Pina. There's only, there's only a few to get a movie about them. So yeah, good thoughts. But boys. Thanks, boys. The World Cup is so far. It's got off to a good start. I'm with you, Joey. I need to get the program sorted because it's very the time differential from our side. Very early games. You need to set your alarm and know which games you're going to get up for and all the rest of it. But I will say the rugby, for the most part, has been entertaining. So we have seen a few heavyweight clashes already, and some teams on the back foot that would have had high hopes of qualifying for the playoffs. I'm talking about the All Blacks and a couple of others, and they really need to pull finger and get their act together. So there will be some entertaining matchups in week 2. And it means there could be upset this tournament, hopefully. That's really needed to throw a spanner in the works. And I'd love to see a Tier 2 nation knock off one of the big boys. So hopefully that happens this week, just to throw that spanner in the works, like I mentioned, and really set the tournament up and set it alight. So, I'm picking this week there's going to be one. I'm not sure who that's going to be, though.
I guess, as we've touched on France making it to the 2011 World Cup despite those losses, that's encouraging signs that the All Blacks, despite that loss, can still make it through. Given results. If they can pull finger from here, who knows? Yeah.
Well, they're going to have to pull probably all 10 of their fingers and all 10 of their toes, because the performances I've seen, I haven't seen enough
you didn't have to
on.
stretch that analogy out there.
Yeah. I think, like I mentioned, the All Blacks, they were leading 13-9 against France, and it looked like the assistant coaches were doing a good job. I think Foster asked if he could do the halftime speech, and then he done it, and then they lost
There we go.
27-13
There you go.
on the back
Again,
of Foster.
you're feeding that. You're feeding that.
No, I'm not going to say that. That's the beer's kicking in. All right, boys. Thanks, boys. Good podcast today. So I'll say just for our listeners, the Kind of Ruck is available through the usual podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube as well, and many more. So keep listening or watching, and don't forget to click the subscribe button. Boys, thanks for being part of the pod and sharing your rugby knowledge and enthusiasm. Joey, mate, Rog, Cam's doing the editing. Thanks, boys, and we'll do it again soon.
Cheers, brothers.
Cheers.
Relax.
Relax, brother.
Relax.